Very nearly about sailing. This is January 2024. Yeah, very nearly the end of January 2024. So Happy New Year if I haven't said that to you before, which I haven't because my last video was the Christmas special, obviously. Tradition has it that my January video, I hate January and February all the time when the clocks are back. I really don't like those months. And I've had a bit of a disastrous start to the year health-wise, but that's just one of those things, and I hadn't planned to do much. So what I'm going to do now, it's just going to be a little bit of a talky thing. It's going to be, I am going to do a quick health update because I'm actually quite optimistic this year that there could be some good changes afoot. And then just a quick idea about the plans, because I'm actually hoping to get Serenity back in the water spring 2025. So I want to get her finished this year, back in the water next year. So I'll give you an update, and there's not a huge amount of projects to do on that. So first of all, let's just kick off. Here's the boring health thing, and I'll put a link to the video below where I first talked about this back in 2018. Hit me like a whatever ton of bricks. And just zapped all of my mental and physical energy, and I've been trying to figure out how to get this sorted out since. But two things: you've got to keep going and you've got to remain optimistic, and there are things to be optimistic about on the health side. First of all, I am on some medication now, which is a very low dose of an existing medication which has been proved that it can help control the and this is theoretical. There have been studies on it, but they think that one of the issues might be that we've got these cells called natural killer cells in us, and they look a bit like this. They look a bit like Viking berserkers, and they just kill everything in sight. Now the trouble is they're not under an awful lot because they're related to the T cells, which are slightly more targeted. But the trouble is, if they go completely wild and out of control, they start to bash up your immune system all the time, and you don't want this type of thing going all the time. You need to slow this down a bit. So the medication I'm on is to try and make these Viking berserkers look a little bit more like this. Now, of course, there's a danger there that this is a little bit too laid back and so on. So you've got to get the level exactly right, and it is a very low level. And I think just before Christmas, I went slightly too quick, too high, to a big level. Then I got a cold, and my immune system, which is normally going like crazy and killing everything in sight, actually then didn't prevent anything happening at all, and the cold got anyway. It just got all horrible. So I think I'm back on an even keel at the moment. And that has helped with the mental fatigue, brain fog, etc. quite a lot. It hasn't helped yet with the physical side, which it may or may not do. We shall see. But I'm on a more equal keel there. The other thing that's going to happen this year, which is very much more important, is that there's a DNA study that I'm involved in where they've taken samples from about 20,000 people. They're analysing about 17,000 of them. This is in the UK with similar illness characteristics, diagnosis, etc. to myself, and what they're doing, they've asked lots of questions. They've looked at specific things because different people have different characteristics. They're then going to do, and I'm going to throw up a Manhattan plot. They're then going to do a Manhattan plot, which is basically the number of the chromosome along the bottom. I don't fully understand this, but I think this explains quite nicely. And then you can see the occurrence of certain markers on those chromosomes going up like skyscrapers. This is why it's called a Manhattan plot, because they're like skyscrapers. The line that you can see sort of in the middle, that's like the normal, somebody without any problems. And the things above that, the patterns of those and where they are can highlight deficiencies and characteristics to do with certain illnesses, diseases and so on. Now they do believe so far these results, they're going to start to do the number crunching in March and they're going to finish doing the number crunching by August. They're not going to give any results out at all until they've done that. So once they've got a Manhattan graph like this, it'll have a particular characteristic. They can then look to see where those peaks are and what other problems this is kind of similar to. So they can, for example, they can see whether it's a mitochondrial problem, whether it's a natural killer cell or danger cell response type problem, whether it's a sort of vagus nerve type problem, whether it's a pulmonary type problem, because there are some sort of heart issues, whether it's a breathing type. There's all sorts of things that I really don't understand. And once they've done that, what they can then do is then map that against existing medications that are used to treat those type of issues, and they can then, with a second sample of the DNA that they've taken and haven't used, they can do some kind of test to see what might be efficacious. This means that they won't have to go out and develop new drugs. They can simply use the medications that are existing and see if there's a combination or whatever that might work. Does that sound all a bit complicated and a bit weird? What has actually happened is in the not too distant past, doing stuff like this. First of all, the genome thing, doing this would have taken years and years and years. Now it takes months, because there are millions and millions and millions of cross-references that they need to do. And secondly, there is now much more of a bigger appetite to actually look at existing medications, and that's happened all since pandemic and so on. So I'm hoping that this year, 2024, is going to be a big year for health, for people who've got an issue like me, which is my official diagnosis is ME/CFS. ME I can never pronounce, I'll write it down here. CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, where you get some sort of a viral infection and it doesn't go away, very similar to long COVID. But anyway, so that's the health side. So let's remain optimistic about this. I'm probably not going to get back to full health, but certainly a lot better. That's that. Let's get rid of these pictures. What do I need to do on the boat? Well, not a huge amount actually. I mean, obviously last year was spent doing a lot of woodwork and getting the workshop in place and getting things sorted out. And if you look at the beginning bit of the December video, I showed how I've really got to the point now where I can start getting the galley sorted out. Obviously, in retrospect, I wouldn't have taken on as much work as I did, but I didn't realise that I was going to slow down as much as I had. So what do I need to do to get the boat into the water? Not a huge amount. I didn't need to refit the galley. I know exactly what I'm going to do there, and I've now got the skills to do it. I need to finish the windlass. I've proved the actual windlass works because I fitted it, did an electrical test, actually ran the chain up and down and so on. Finish the holding tank. I've now got the tools that I need and the materials to actually experiment, and I really still want to do the welding of the HDPE plastic and make a holding tank. And the rigging needs replacing because it's that old. It hasn't been used a huge amount, but I'd feel much more comfortable with new rigging, and I want to do it myself. And I'll probably use is it called stay lock? I can't remember, where you sort of tighten it down and do that. I think that's the best way of doing it. I did get a quote ages ago for somebody to do the rigging, but I think I'd feel more comfortable doing it myself. It's not a very big boat. It's not that complicated. I need to do the standing and the running rigging, and prepare for launch, as I say, next year, which will be just after I officially kind of retire, which was my very original plan. In terms of cruising, what cruising I'm going to do, I'm probably not going to go off, probably not going to be able to go off and do big long journeys. So I'm looking at a couple of estuaries where I can keep Serenity, and that I can do sort of fairly protected sailing, but I'm actually quite close to some good sailing grounds. I'm also going to be lending the boat to Lucy to go out with her friends and stuff, that she can borrow it occasionally, because she started to get, just before the pandemic, she started to get her qualifications up to speed, and she's still, as you know, half mermaid, so she wants to do all those sea type things. So yeah, do you know what, this year might be very slow, and I don't care, because every time that I've actually tried to speed up, something's gone wrong, and I have found that the slower I go, the better it works and the quicker it works. So most of this is to do with getting me ready to go back in the water, not necessarily with getting Serenity back in the water. Serenity doesn't need a huge amount of work. I mean, there are little jobs like it sounds big, like the rewiring. Rewiring is trivial. This is the sort of thing I can do standing on my head. There's no major jobs to do. There's no major sort of muscle type jobs. As you know, the rudder's all finished. Things are going back in the boat as we speak. Well, not as we speak, because it's actually dark, and it's, you know, but anyway, and I shall get that all finished off. So anyway, there will be some content next month. Not quite sure what I'll be doing. There's a few things I need to finish off in the workshop, because I didn't manage to do any work in January. I need to do some jigs and sleds and things for the for the table saw. I've also got a jigsaw which I need for certain things, and a few other bits and pieces, and need to get that a little bit slightly more tidied up. And there will be some varnishing and so on to do, but that's all ready, and I might get Lucy to do all of that. She's actually said she quite enjoys doing the varnishing side. So anyway, that's just me wittering on for a bit. Hope you've had a good New Year so far. Do drop comments below. Let me know. I've tried not to call these New Year's resolutions, but if you've got any New Year's resolutions, drop them down below. Tell me what you're going to be doing. Tell me what your sailing plans are this year. It's quite nice to live vicariously. I know there's a lot of sailors who watch this channel, and yeah, tell me if you've got any big plans this year. I'd be very interested to find out. Until then, I shall see you in February, which is a very short month.